Okay, I'm going to continue setting the context for you in terms of where Esri has been in the past with the oceans, where we are at the present, and where we hope to go in the future, which is why all of us are here. I'm going to run through a presentation for the next maybe 30 minutes or so. Amazingly, we are ahead of schedule right now, so there will be plenty of time for questions or comments for either me or Ben after I finish my presentation, and then we'll take a little coffee break and we'll move forward to a very exciting panel. So we are all champions of the oceans, and if you'll allow me to make a political statement here, it is very heartening with regard to the election last night, because it does mean that the National Ocean Policy will survive to live another day, and hopefully we can move forward with progress on that national front. And in terms of the way that we are inspired by the ocean, I thought it would be fun to share, to start off, since I'm going to talk a little bit about history. I'll just start off with this one historical snippet. This day in history, on November the 7th, a Spanish engineer named Leonardo Torres y Quevedo used a remote control to maneuver a boat in a Bilbao estuary, and that actually paved the way for Zenith's first TV remote control 5 decades later. So our ability to be couch potatoes and to channel surf, even that is tied to the oceans in some way. So, amen to that. So let me look at a bit of Esri ocean GIS history for you. Now, this is not a full exposure of all the activities. I myself have only been at Esri for a little over a year, but some of this we have experienced over the years, those of us who've been in ocean and coastal GIS for many, many years. So I'm just going to give you a few snippets over the course of these decades here. Back in 1989, that may have been the first real big push that Esri made into the ocean space, because at that time, Esri product engineers developed the marine spill analysis system based on ArcInfo, and then that was ported over to ArcView. And that marine spill analysis system was actually adopted by several government agencies. Many of us have worked for many years with Charles Convis, who runs our conservation GIS program and makes grants to non-governmental organizations and like-minded conservation groups. Charles did a lot of work in the ocean space with this conservation grant program back in 1989. And these were grants mainly in terms of ocean conservation mapping, marine species protection. He actually has a list of around 80 agencies that he gave grants to during that time. So that's a wonderful piece of history for Esri. And today, of course, this program continues on. Many of us are familiar with it. And if you go to the Conservation GIS conference, that's usually ahead of the main Esri user conference, you get to interact with Charles, and that's really where our Conservation GIS community does come together. That program continues to be a very strong program, and it's moved into cloud-based GIS, and there's a lot going on with ArcGIS Online. There's an ArcGIS Online grant program that you can see, and there's an example there of the IUCN deployment of that, and there are literally thousands of species range maps that are on ArcGIS Online right now, and many of them are marine species range maps. 1999, I can see several people in the audience who participated in the special Ocean GIS exhibition that took place in 1999. That was a very important user conference for many of us. Sylvia Earle was the keynote speaker and gave a very compelling keynote address that you can still see online if you go to the Esri video page. And she really lit the fire under many of us in terms of let's move forward and continue to improve GIS for the oceans. There were a lot of hopes and expectations that came out of her keynote address, and I think a lot of things are coming to fruition now, based in part on the wonderful inspiration that she gave to many during that user conference. And over the course of the 1990s and into the 2000s, Esri had been very much involved, especially with the National Imagery and Mapping Agency, which is now NGA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. And there was a lot of good work that went on in terms of digital nautical charting, navigation ships system for NEMA at that time, and also the development of hydrographic information systems, especially in Scandinavia, specifically Finland and Sweden. Skipping forward, I should mention also that based on that 1999 user conference, there was, I think, one of the initial efforts to really connect to the ocean science community in terms of those of us who are working at universities and research institutes, as well as scientists within federal agencies. 2007 I picked out because I happened to have the old slides from the special interest group, the Marine SIG, the Marine Special Interest Group from 2007. I believe that Jeff Donzie, this is from Jeff Donzie's slide as he led that special interest group at the user conference. And it was just very interesting to see the main action items or the main topics that were part of that SIG at that time. So hydrographic solutions was big, the production nautical mapping for NOAA, the ARC Marine data model, which was a grassroots effort that involved Duke University and DHI, Water and Environment, Oregon State University, and NOAA to develop one of the many grassroots customized geodatabase data models, and that continues today. And we'll talk about ARC Marine in a few minutes. There was a newsletter that was put out mainly from the efforts of Joe Bremen back when he was working at Esri. Jim Shiraka was also very involved at that time. We have a new Oceans newsletter thanks to the efforts of Drew, Belinda, and others, and you have hopefully have a copy of the new generation now of our newsletter, which is the Oceans newsletter. NetCDF, we were just starting to try to get into dealing with NetCDF data at that time, and so that was an issue that was on the minds of many of us who work with ocean data. I have Google Ocean here too because that was coming. 2 years after 2007, Google released Google Earth for the oceans, and that has made a major impact on all of our work as well. This was also the names of the partners that we had at the time back in 2007. So some of the names are familiar even today. These partnerships have persisted to the present and have grown. For instance, the University of New Hampshire, Center for Coastal and Ocean Mapping, Digital Globe, and so forth. So you may recognize some of these groups from back in 2007. Moving on to today, well, we've all been talking about, of course, Hurricane Sandy, and people have become very aware of the dangers and implications of storm surge and sea level rise. Unfortunately, now there's news about a nor'easter that is coming in, I think today or tomorrow. So the oceans, climate change, even though we don't want to make a direct link right now between climate change and Hurricane Sandy, that is on the minds of people. It's amazing that it wasn't discussed in more detail in the presidential election, but so be it, we move forward. So there are many things that have happened and are happening in this particular year, 2012. It's been quite a year. So just to go through a few of these highlights, it was 1 year after the large Tohoku Oki earthquake and tsunami, and the Oregon and Washington coast is still dealing with the after effects of that tsunami in terms of tsunami debris, even whole docks that have washed up onto the coast of Oregon. The 20th anniversary of the Rio Earth Summit and the implications for sustainable ocean management. At this particular summit, the oceans, they tried to put oceans front and center. There was mixed success with that, but the advocacy continues. It's the 30th anniversary of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. All of these have implications for GIS, which is why I'm listing them here. The 100th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic, which we at Esri celebrated with a map story and a spatial roundtable web-based discussion back in April, and the implications of that for marine transportation and safety even to this very day. There was a study that came out in Science this year that talked about how the oceans are acidifying faster now than in the past 300 million years. And of course, there was James Cameron reaching Challenger deep in his special torpedo submersible. And I make note of that because of the exploration challenge that we still face with the oceans. And as Ben said, we're preaching to the choir here. But over the years, we've added to the number of people who've ascended to Mount Everest. Over 1,500 people have been to Mount Everest now. There have been over 300 people who have gone into space, and we've sent more people into space in recent years. But James Cameron represents, out of a grand total of 2 people who had previously reached the deepest spot on our planet, James Cameron became the 3rd. So there's still so much that we have not explored about the oceans. We still only know about 5% of the oceans in great detail. Of course, again, preaching to the choir, there's the implications here for us as scientists are massive. So we are all here for solutions. We are all explorers. We're scientists. We're resource managers. We do have a wonderful suite of tools, and this is a colorful diagram that came from a National Academy of Sciences report that shows the various kinds of vehicles and platforms and systems that we're all working with now and hopefully will be over the next 30 years. We are up to the challenge of the complexity and the enormity of the data streams that come from these various sources. And so that's, again, part of what we are here to discuss in terms of pushing Ocean GIS forward, and specifically Esri Ocean GIS. So we have this Ocean GIS initiative that Jack and I alluded to in the video. It was officially launched at the Esri User Conference in July. So if you were at the user conference, then you saw hopefully saw the presentations and the environment showcase and the Esri Oceans focus and the map gallery and so forth. One of the things that has grown in terms of our history, so I'm moving us now from the past to the present, is that, for instance, back in 2007, we had maybe 10 people who were on a quote-unquote oceans or maritime team at Esri, and that number has now grown to over 40. And so we have a wonderful present and virtual team of people across the organization who are working on the many projects and partnerships that I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. So these folks have various titles. They move across professional services, sales, industry solutions, of course our core software development, software products, and so forth. So we really do have a wonderful, I would say, tour de force team of great people. So many of you have seen me speak about the Ocean GIS initiative. You have the hard copy of an ebook that lays this out in more detail, gives you some more specifics. It's actually a shortened version of a strategic plan, an internal proprietary strategic plan that we have here at Esri that is significantly longer. But I tend to divide our strategy here for our initiative in 3 parts in terms of projects, partnerships, and strategic goals. So I'm going to take us from the present into the future as I move through these 3 areas. So if you'll bear with me for a few more minutes, I'll go through this fairly quickly. So current projects, hopefully you all know about the Esri Ocean Base Map, which is our comprehensive cartographic representation of world bathymetry. It was based initially on the general bathymetric chart of the oceans. It's being added to all the time with high-resolution bathymetry. This is the work of a tremendous team within our professional services maritime team. Beate van Esch, who is the leader of that initiative, is sitting in the back if you'd like to talk to her about some of the specifics with regard to the Esri Oceans Base Map. And this is the undersea equivalent of our Community Maps program. So we are taking in new bathymetric, high-quality bathymetric data all the time. So you can talk to Beate or talk to myself about how to get involved with that. There are updates to the Ocean Base Map that come at regular cycles. So this is a work in progress. We're also thinking about additional content that we can leverage on top of the base map, so that we can point people to services that will allow you to access maritime boundaries that you might overlay on the base map, hopefully marine animal distributions. If we can move forward with the partnership with the Ocean Biogeographic Information System, Pat Halpin's group at Duke and so forth. I believe the next revision, the next version of the base map will hopefully have the Lamont Earth Observatory bathymetric data from the Marine Geoscience data system and that global multi-resolution synthesis. So the ocean base map has been going since last year. It was released on World Hydrographic Day, International Hydrographic Day. So that's a wonderful project. We also have a solution for the desktop, which is known as ArcGIS for Maritime. Tim Kearns is the leader of the entire Esri Maritime team, and he is also here. So if you have more questions about ArcGIS for Maritime, either for charting or for bathymetry as a solution as part of the ArcGIS system, if you're involved in maintaining, creating, publishing charts for nav or for other types of related purposes, or I think with this group here is particularly interested in storing, managing, mosaicing, documenting their bathymetric data sets. So ArcGIS for Maritime is something that was released just this year. Something else that we're not quite sure if users are aware of are the many resource centers that are available now at resources.esri.com. So I really want to point your attention to several of them that are within the maritime or oceans theme. So there's an ArcGIS for Maritime Resource Center. And for some of these sites, if you, see if I can get the pointer to work, the URL is at the bottom of the slide. You'll get a copy of these slides as well. But go to this particular website and you'll see where you can get, and this is a place not only to get maps, approaches, tips and tricks on working with the software solutions, but also getting additional data, getting additional snippets of code, a community in terms of tying into what we're saying and doing on our blogs, where we always have additional information that you want to keep up with, Twitter feeds, and so forth. So there's an ArcGIS for Maritime Resource Center that ties to the ArcGIS for Maritime Charting, ArcGIS for Maritime Bathymetry products. There's also an ArcGIS, or it's an Oceans Resource Center that stretches from the traditional hydrographic surveying, ports, utilities, and so forth, that more corporate industrial community, to the research community, particularly at universities, colleges, research institutes, non-governmental organizations that do a lot of research, a lot of science, such as the Nature Conservancy or Conservation International, and science foci at the federal agencies. So that's what this ArcGIS for Oceans Resource Center is for. This resource center is also being added to all the time. Hopefully this week we will be releasing the benthic terrain modeler, which many of you are familiar with. This is a project that started at the Oregon State University Marine GIS Lab in collaboration with the NOAA Coastal Services Center, and it's basically a set of tools for assessing, classifying ocean bathymetry, particularly if you want to do bathymetric position index, rugosity calculations, and so forth. One of the first steps in moving into benthic habitat mapping. The tool set has been fairly popular over the years, and we now have a new collaboration between Esri, the NOAA Coastal Services Center Digital Coast, and the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management has been very helpful as well. And so Benthic Terrain Modeler, or BTM, has been updated to ArcGIS version 10.1. It has much improved capabilities. Sean Walbridge, who is here in the audience somewhere, who's my new research assistant, has been one of the development wizards there. And so this is now available for download onto ArcGIS Desktop to work within that ArcGIS environment. It's open source. So this is another one of the ways that we are moving. There are going to be continual improvements to this tool now that it is fully supported by Esri. And so we will be looking forward to talking with many of you who are longtime BTM users and those of you who are new users about the ways forward with this tool, and also combining the capabilities of this tool as appropriate with other tool sets, such as the Marine Geospatial Ecology tool set from Duke. So this is an example of where we're going. This is something that you can get from the ArcGIS Oceans Resource Center. So we hope to have that up in the next few days. Within the Oceans Resource Center, there is also an Ocean Use Planning Resource Center as well. And this is tied to a lot of effort that went into this particular variation on ArcGIS Online, which is the ArcGIS for Ocean Use Planning. The URL, again, is at the bottom here. And this is one of the variations on the theme that was developed by Esri in close collaboration with NOAA and BOEM. So this brings to the fore many of the federal data sets that are in use for coastal and marine spatial planning or ocean use planning. So you can go to this particular site to participate there, or there are additional resources within the Oceans Resource Center for ocean use planning. And as I'm talking about these various projects, these are things that I hope will come into our discussions within the breakout groups in terms of how we might improve these projects and these products, as well as the broader discussions that we're going to have about, how do we solve the problem of 3D and 4D as we do our analyses with GIS. There's yet another site that's one of the basic Esri marketing sites. So if you go to the industry portion of the Esri.com webpage, or basically you can just go to esri.com/oceans. And this gives you links to books and case studies, and also to these resources that I've already showed you. But normally people go into a particular vertical community, such as utilities, local government, hydrology, and so forth. So this is the oceans community as well. So there are many ways to get at these new resources, new and existing resources that we're building now. Ben has already given you a nice overview of C-Sketch, and C-Sketch did go live on Halloween night. I think it was very appropriate. and so it's now live. You can go to csketch.org, and you can run through a demo of the capabilities of this very exciting software as a service platform that Will McClintock's lab at UCSB has built, and Esri has put in a lot of support and partnership with Will's group in helping with C-Sketch. So go to csketch.org, and Will, again, is here if you'd like to ask for some additional connections there. Hopefully you've also heard about the series of story maps that the Esri Cartographic and ArcGIS Online team has been putting out, where you can literally tell some very powerful stories with your geographic data and with ArcGIS Online and similar tools. This is a way to communicate to the general public, to policymakers, to other scientists. This particular story map tells the story of the wreck of the Titanic in terms of where people were coming from, where they had hoped to end up had the wreck not occurred. Some of the stories that you can, some of the details that you can dig into the data to find are quite compelling, such as this is actually showing, you won't be able to see this in great detail, but in digging through the data, I found the story of this family that was in first class on the Titanic, and yet the infant daughter in that family died. So what were the circumstances surrounding that, given that they were in first class, when the theory was that people who were in third class, most of the people who perished were in third class. At any rate, there are templates so that you can build your own online story maps. And so this is a very, very powerful tool that is at your disposal as well. And you can go to storymaps.esri.com. Something else that I wanted to alert you to in terms of what we're doing currently are a series of live seminars. And we have these all the time at Esri, But this particular live training seminar, the timing, I think, is quite perfect because it's about working with NetCDF data in ArcGIS 10.1, and you think, oh, okay, that's fine. But the focus here will be specifically on atmospheric and oceanographic data in NetCDF. So there's a lot of excellent work that has been put into evolving how we work with NetCDF data, as well as HDF and similar multidimensional data formats. We're going to have a specific breakout session tomorrow on multidimensional data formats so that you can hash out the remaining issues with NetCDF, HDF, OpenDAP threads, and related issues. At any rate, this particular seminar will be held next Thursday. Here's the URL, the quick shortened URL to get more information, to get to this page so that you can sign up for this live free seminar. And thanks to Noman and also to Mark Seigan for providing this information so that I could slip it into the PowerPoint here. So that's just a really quick overview of some of our projects. It doesn't cover everything that we're doing, but just to give you a quick overview, partnerships are extremely important. And so we've talked about some of these partners already. This is a list of partners that we have been working with recently. So again, there's so many partners, so many wonderful collaborations, and we hope to have more come about as a result of this meeting. But this is a list of some of the most recent ones in the last year under the Ocean GIS initiative. At the top, these are the two at the top are especially important because those are specific memberships now. Esri is a member of the World Ocean Council, which is a consortium of businesses, industry, that is very much focused on sustainable use of the oceans as they extract resources from them. And then many of us in the academic community are familiar with the Consortium for Ocean Leadership, or it's also known as Ocean Leadership, which is basically all of the top oceanographic scientific research institutions in the United States, as well as affiliate members. And so Esri is now an affiliate member of the Consortium for Ocean Leadership. We are also involved across the board with the regional ocean partnerships that essentially are pushing forward and implementing the national ocean policy. Since here in Redlands on the West Coast, Esri has been quite involved with the West Coast Governors Alliance on Ocean Health, but we're also trying to track what's going on with the Great Lakes and on the East Coast with those regional organizations, those regional partnerships as well. But this just shows you the West Coast Governors Alliance on Ocean Health page and URL. And there's a new action coordination team that's part of that alliance, which is the West Coast Regional Ocean and Coastal Data Framework team. And there are a couple of members of that team who are here with us for the next 2 days. So these are all, again, very, very important partnerships, strategic partnerships that we hope will help us to move forward with our strategic goals. So I'll end with that. And again, here are many of our strategic partners. And in the Ocean GIS Initiative book, it gives you an overview again of the projects, the partnerships, and the strategic goals. If you look at the strategic goals part here, the numbers refer to the page numbers in that ebook. And so I've talked pretty much about these. It looks like the battery in my pointer has gone out. But the top half, I've touched on those very quickly. Convene an ocean summit. So that's where we're here now. We are fulfilling that part of our strategic plan. And then we have here the data model, ArcMarine data model, and so forth. So let me just touch on those. The ArcMarine data model was developed in 2007, but we now have the resources and the personnel, and again, Sean Walbridge is going to be very much involved in this in terms of updating that model, bringing it into compliance with our current technologies, making sure that we have proper tutorials, use cases, and so forth. Having tools be developed based on the model will be important. Particularly just a basic data ingest tool for ArcMarine, which has never existed. this is a diagram that shows the common marine data types from that model, which paved the way for the feature classes and relationship classes that are part of that model. And it's amazing how communicative, hopefully, this diagram is or continues to be, because it came from a whiteboard session that Pat Halpin led at one of our workshops in 2001. And that whiteboard, your whiteboard, has lived on into what we now have as the data model. So that will be something that we'll be working very hard on updating, perhaps similar to the work that we are doing with the benthic terrain modeler. The vertical datum transformation issues that are vexing to so many of us, that's an issue that Esri is also working on as well, and we hope for some solutions that may make their way into ArcGIS 11, but these are certainly issues that we have been discussing and working on very hard as well as a strategic goal. Of course, the 3D, 4D is always an issue that is critical for us given the dynamism of the ocean environment. And one of the things that is an exciting development is the idea of geoinformation models that are pretty much at the heart of everything that we do with our software, be it the desktop or online or server or mobile apps. And Scott Morehouse, who is our director of software development, is with us here in the audience, so he can add to this or pull me off the stage with a cane if I'm going in the wrong direction. But this is a very important part of our vision moving forward. In 2012, there's been a 3D urban information model that has been developed and a 3D-enabled local government information model. And we are hoping that in 2013 and 2014, that software development will be moving forward to these other geoinformation models, and basically these are the features, the layers, the data sets that are needed for the specific workflows that help us to answer our scientific questions, solve our problems, and so forth. So there are plans for a 3D ocean model as well as a 3D atmospheric model for 2013 or 2014. The hope of many of us is that a 3D ocean or atmospheric model will not be entirely vector-based. There is hope and there are discussions that we can incorporate some of the approaches that have been effective in terms of using octrees or voxels and so forth, especially as we need to slice through and to do numerical calculations with true 3D objects through time. So this is another one of the areas that we will be discussing in our breakout groups tomorrow. And there should be some very, very good discussions moving forward. So let me close with this diagram here, which is a representative diagram in terms of the many things that we are thinking about: data models, databases, specific tools, quality control, quality assurance, workflows, especially through ArcGIS Model Builder, working with the server and the cloud. We have various solutions that come up from that are also part of our overall concept. The charting, the bathymetry, of course the ocean base map, the ArcMarine data model, which we've been surprised has been implemented and has been used by so many organizations, particularly in Europe. So that will be something that we will move forward on, as I've mentioned, and many, many new tools and new approaches. So I'll end with this slide because I think it does give us a nice overview of some of the things that we're going to be talking about specifically today. And we are going to have a discussion today in terms of the various domains: marine ecology, marine geology, geophysics, physical, chemical, oceanography, ocean observing, coastal marine spatial planning, etc. A domain discussion today, and then more of a technical discussion tomorrow, and you'll hear about that after lunch. But for now, I'll close.